All right. Hello, everybody. This is Brendan Gilhooly from A-Team. We have Alex Bartholomew, our panelist, joining us as well from People Stretch Solutions. Say hello, Alex.
Yeah, Alex Bartholomew, CEO, People Stretch Solutions. We're a management consulting firm focused on helping companies and organizations grow revenue and scale to different levels of growth. We do work in North America, South America, and EMEA, and we are very passionate about OKRs.
Fantastic. I am Brendan Gilhooly. I am Vice President of Sales and Customer Success from A-Team. A-Team exists to help data-driven CEOs, executives, and managers set clear, measurable objectives that link strategy to execution and help everyone in the organization align and connect to what matters most. We are very excited to welcome everybody today. We have an outstanding response. So we know that fast starts with OKRs is something that is resonating with people, and we've done a lot of work with many different companies. And our agenda here today is to talk to you about some of those best practices for your OKR rollout. We're going to talk about cascading corporate goals and departments and teams and how to do that quickly and efficiently, and to create that alignment and connectivity that will increase collaboration and ultimately results. We're looking to make this a very interactive conversation. So please, if you have questions or comments, you would be welcome to add those into the go-to chat. Yeah, be sure to add in that slide number that you're referring to if you'd like to save your questions for the end, or if you'd like to follow up afterwards, you can send your questions to hello@A-Team. So again, we appreciate your attendance today, and very excited to get started. So let's get started. In terms of our platform, really we want to start asking some questions up front and define success up front. Alex.
Right, let's go to the next slide. Thanks, Brendan. So we skipped a slide. Can we just go back one? I apologize. So one of the key things that, in the spirit of starting fast, we always start with questions. And a lot of times we find when we've been brought in to help people with OKRs, they got very excited about the book, Measure What Matters. Everybody loved the idea of creating transparency, aligning the team, and doing all the great things that book talks about. But what they don't really think about are these fundamental questions. They don't think about, what's the goal of establishing the OKRs? They don't perhaps formulate problem statements that hopefully OKRs address. And then what we really want them to focus on is, what does the organization look like if the OKRs have been successful? So wanted just to share that with everyone on the call, because a lot of times people get so excited about the book, about adopting OKRs, but they don't really ask these very fundamental and foundational questions to create the right content in order to get off to a fast start. Brendan, did you have a follow-up question on this?
Yeah, absolutely. When taking a look at why to roll out an OKR framework, the first step is to try to connect your strategy to execution. So when you're speaking with your clients, Alex, how are you kind of overcoming those initial barriers and trying to help people focus on the results that they're looking for immediately?
So a lot of times companies that we engage have a strategy, and if they ask these questions, the answers to these questions a lot of times can help them update and further shape their strategy in a way that gets the leadership team excited and ultimately gets all the employees excited. I think that's why we're fans of these questions. I also think, you know, a lot of people on this call are practitioners like you and I, and, you know, I learned early on as I was getting into consulting, so much is about the culture and the vision. And so, you know, what changes are going to be seen by the organization if OKRs are successful? Getting everyone to visualize that actually helps people not get stuck in the weeds and can help an organization get out of the minutia and really first get focused on why this is important.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. You know, what we've seen is that if we can talk to our clients and engage in an unfiltered dialogue around ideas, creating more transparency, increases the amount of trust, because there's going to be many questions that have not been asked when we're starting to work on the execution phase with OKRs. So it's good to, you know, ultimately start with the end in mind, and let's take a look at what success looks like. Define that up front, and we're in a better position to ultimately achieve the results that you're looking for through OKRs. So,
yeah, that's good. So let's go to the next slide, just looking at some other best practices, because I know that people are like, okay, great, we've got strategy, we've asked the questions, now what? The next piece that we see a lot of companies not doing is using change management, and how, you know, true enterprise level change management can be applied. And I use the term enterprise level not because enterprise companies are the only ones who can do this. And, you know, small companies can actually put a communication plan together, a roadmap, training, coaching, and reinforcement. That is a enterprise practice which needs to be applied at all size companies. So that's the first important thing that I want to recommend to everybody. The second thing I want to recommend to everyone is budgeting time early in the process to do OKR rationalization. And OKR rationalization is something that we've been working on for the last year. And it's really bringing everyone together and talking through the OKR. So the first phase, there's a high level OKR. And so that's the leadership team working on the high level OKR. And then the conversations that then happen after that, that's rationalizing the next level down. And that's an important aspect. That conversation of rationalizing the next level down of OKRs is really what helps an organization accelerate and get off to a good start. If the rationalization isn't invested early on, then people are going to get off. Some people, if their OKRs aren't designed well and aligned well, they'll get off to a slow start. So that's why the rationalization is so important. Another important aspect to drive speed is simplicity. We recommend at the top level only 3 organizational corporate objectives, possibly less. 2 is a good number as well. Measure What Matters talks 3 to 5. And I think in an initial phase, think 2 to 3 as opposed to 3 to 5. Additionally, you want to limit the downward layers in phase 1 and phase 2. Now, I know that it's very exciting, the prospect of building OKRs bottom up. We want to get engagement at the frontline level. We want to hear from them. We want them to participate. In the beginning, though, it might be difficult for them to participate. And so I think it's important in phase 1 and phase 2 to manage everyone's expectation that once we hit phase 3 and phase 4, everyone will be participating. In phase 1 and phase 2, we have to, you know, have defined groups participating. And then
Yeah.
the last thing, oh, sorry, Brendan, do you have a question?
Well, no, actually, why don't you finish up that metrics, not milestones, and then I'll jump in after that.
Right. So from the last item that we find is metrics, not milestones. When we talk about key results and people read about key results, they read about all types of key results. What we find is that while any key result is better than no key result, if we want to get off to a fast start, it's making sure your key results are metrics, not milestones. Once again, there's nothing wrong with milestones. We're just trying to direct people. If they want to get off to a fast start, they have to stay laser focused on metrics. They need to not let breaking a objective down to be a distraction. In some cases, the first phase, they need to benchmark before they start improving. And one of the things around metrics is that for some of the more advanced people, they should try to balance quantitative and qualitative metrics. And so a quantitative metric might be revenue, a qualitative metric might be profit. They're both numbers, but revenue tends to be feels quantitative, and profit tends to be more aligned to qualitative.
Yeah, and I'd like to connect two of the concepts here in terms of how to achieve that fast start, identifying good key results, metric-driven key results, and doing that through the rationalization process by identifying your key results that are not as milestone driven. One of the things we get concerned about is when we start to see a lot of milestone key results, it starts to feel more like a task list. And through that rationalization process that Alex has been working on with his clients, we can have a more clear and transparent view of the OKRs and something that's measurable, and you're having an agreement through that rationalization process. Alex, how are you connecting creating the key results with that rationalization process?
So the first thing we rationalize is objectives. And I think one of the things that we're trying to do is first rationalize the objective. The next thing we need to try to do is, as the objectives have been aligned, we try to get people thinking about key results and measuring success as a measure of, if people haven't read the book, I believe that's the tool that Door gives in order to help people just get into the habit. We're going to measure success as fill in the blank. And it's a great, conversation tool in order to help people measure the key result. And so part of that conversation starts with the objective and rationalizing it, and then drops into rationalizing the key result. And the more it can be a conversation as opposed to a monologue, that's what makes following this methodology so rewarding for all parties involved.
Yeah, fantastic. And that can really help. Asking the questions up front will help drive the fast launch that you're looking for. So now that we have asked the questions, we've had rationalized objectives, and we're having a conversation throughout the organization, there's a hierarchy where we can start to cascade these objectives down throughout the organization. Alex, do you want to take us through how you are proposing this?
Well, so there are many ways to do this. For starters, there's not one way. This is actually just an example, because a lot of times people want to do this in phase 1 or phase 2. And so the reason I'm sharing this is because this is aspirationally what we want to get to in phase 3 or phase 4. And it involves, at the highest level, the high level objective for the whole company, and then breaking it down to either the division or the business line, and then breaking it down to a director level, a manager level, and an individual level. So you essentially have 5 levels of objectives. Let me be clear, I am not recommending this for phase 1 or phase 2, but I wanted to show this so people know what they can work towards. And this is an important aspect when we eventually talk about the change management plan and how to roll this out to a large group. I mean, we're currently talking to large organizations like the US Air Force and one of the largest gaming companies in the world, Square Enix. And when organizations that have thousands of people that are looking to adopt this, everyone needs to understand from the beginning of where we're trying to get to and how long it's going to take us to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of a fast start, Laszlo Bock, who was the people ops at Google, talked about a DRI, a directly responsible individual. So earlier in your process to achieve your fast start, as you were saying, Alex, this is aspirational. Don't think about starting here. This is, an endpoint. So you'll have that directly responsible individual that will be responsible for updating on behalf of his or her teams. So we don't need to drive those key results, so far down into the organization. You're going to, for example, own the objective at, say, a director level or the divisional level, and that individual will be updating on behalf of their team. So they're going to recognize the collective efforts of the team. They're going to rally the team around it. They're going to have rationalized and understood what success looks like as defined by the key results. And they're going to be reporting those up through the updating of their key results to the organization, to the higher levels, so that we can see how progress goes. Then over time, you are able to drive that ownership down and get more cascading objectives and key results. But that should be something that you look to do over time, and you were able to create the alignment first by recognizing those teams and having them update on behalf of their, those objectives on behalf of their teams.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things to add there, Brendan, is in phase 1, you're thinking about the highest level and then a business line and maybe even director level. In phase 2, you're going to go down 1 level. And I think one of the things that I'm hopeful that people on this call will think about in relation to the directly responsible individual, in an organization of 50, it's 5 to 10 people that are driving the leadership success of that organization. And then companies, as they grow, that group grows with it. In a phase 1 rollout to get off to a fast start, it's that same small group of people that are focused on learning how to use OKRs, getting very comfortable with them, and really becoming the coach of the coach of the coaches. And they're going to be the ones that will be pushing it down. I think it's really important to make sure that by only starting with the high level objective and 1 or 2 levels down, that the organization gets comfortable knowing how to use this methodology. And thanks to that patience and the practice, the first group of directly responsible individuals will be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And while we're limiting those DRIs to a smaller number of people in the organization, let's not forget to share across the organization, socialize the concept of the OKRs, do stand-ups, updates, share that information transparently, show that there's accountability at the highest levels of the organization towards these results. And as you start to roll this out further into the organization, it's going to resonate and connect, because they absolutely understand that everybody in the organization is going to be involved as, again, it's rolling out further. It's going to be modeled at the top that this is important. It's not about another thing we're doing. It's the most important thing.
Great.
Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit more about lessons we've learned. From an A-team standpoint, in speaking with hundreds of companies over the years that we've been around that are roll out OKRs, we wanted to share some of the lessons that we've learned and that helped people in the organizations adopt this quickly and successful So focus is the most important part of the rollout and adoption. We really can't stress this enough. It's what are the objectives that you want to drive the needle on and have an immediate effect within a given time frame. When you focus on too many things, you focus on nothing. So we say, keep it simple from the start, and when in doubt, do less OKRs. Start less, finish more. And when you start to see those results at those higher levels, and you're driving the needle, then it is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Brendan, tell us more about outcomes versus output, because I think that's one I really hit on, but I want to hear your perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it really starts with the task lists, and going back to the concept of objective rationalization and having the correct key results that are more metric driven. You want to look at outcomes. What are we trying to accomplish? Not what is the activity that's going to be necessary to make that progress. It's how are we going to measure the outcomes. So we want to make sure that you're not thinking of A-team or any OKR process as a project management tool or a task list. When you start to think about a whole organization and the number of activities that everybody is engaged with, it can be mind-numbing. So the beauty of OKRs is because it does simplify it, because you are able to only focus in on those outcomes and those results that people are driving towards, and not.
So Brendan, you're on a roll with key results. Talk to us about key results and team engagement.
Right. It goes back to, again, those directly responsible individuals. You are able to engage more people in the organization through the ownership of key results. When you are starting to roll out the objectives, cascade and cross align in the organization, again, at first, don't look to align everything. Try to keep it simple. And as you are aligning them, align the objectives. Don't create the key results for your teams. Again, this gets back to that rationalization concept. Set the objectives and have your team and the other responsible parties set those key results bottom up, and have those conversations in collaboration that are going to engage and get the buy-in, so that everybody understands where they're heading and what they're trying to accomplish. And that again goes to number 4, trying to create the alignment. That's where, through the engagement, everybody understands what's expected of them. While there are many ways to do the alignment, again, we want to focus on, especially through our platform, keep it simple. There's many features, and there's many different ways that we can help organizations align. But in a fast start, we want to caution against the concept of having everything aligned top to bottom, all at once, day one. This is something that,
yeah,
again,
that's a big thing.
Brendan,
let's talk about the OKR lifecycle, because I think people a lot of times aren't aligned because they don't understand the OKR lifecycle, and adopting OKRs is a significant commitment on everybody's part. So tell us more about the OKR lifecycle and how that contributes to alignment.
Absolutely. So it's an iterative process, and not to go through each one of these bullet points. You're just looking to plan, track, and then close and reflect, and then reset for the next quarter. So you can get into an iterative process where you have alignment, where you're having regular conversations that are focused on what are we going to accomplish as an organization, as a department, as a team, or even contribute as an individual. You will agree on what those focus priorities are, and then work on tracking, and it becomes a life cycle that iterates. You choose an endpoint, understand metrically how you're going to drive progress towards that, and allow yourself flexibility to be able to accomplish it. Obviously, being a software
So
company.
Brendan, what we might want to throw out to the group is for people who are currently either working with OKRs or have worked with OKRs, are you struggling with planning your OKRs, tracking your progress, or closing and reflecting on your progress? So that's a question to the group that hopefully we'd love to get your feedback and or questions back to us. How can we help you get better at planning your OKRs, tracking your progress, and or closing and reflecting on your progress? So question to the group. Let's get some questions coming back in. Brendan, back to you. Sorry for interrupting.
No, not at all. Actually, I was going to turn it right back to you because, one of the things as a software company, our development team, works in an agile way. I know you had some interesting thoughts on how you can bring that agile methodology to OKRs.
Absolutely. So we're seeing business agility become more and more important in organizations, especially outside of the software development team. And so it all starts with, for the lack of a better term, sprint planning. As you're planning your OKRs, it's just like sprint planning. I think one of the key things is that once that's locked in, an OKR has 6 sprints. Those sprints are 2 weeks each. And through that period, if you want, you can even do 12 one-week sprints. And an OKR tool allows individuals, teams to report their progress. And so at the end of that 1 or 2 week sprint, you can have a retrospective. You can have that check-in where you give feedback. And then at the very end, you can have a quarter retrospective that allows you to look back on the last 6 weeks, whether you did 6 sprints or 12 sprints, and really see, okay, we had the right objective, wrong key result. Maybe we had wrong objective, or maybe we can all high-five each other because we had the right objective, right key result, and the team met or exceeded the number. So I think it borrows on a lot of the same principles that companies running Agile believe in.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to some of the best practices, I wanted to transition now to the change management aspect when you're introducing OKRs. You use ADKAR, so please, can you walk us through a little bit what the ADKAR methodology is and how you use it to roll out OKRs?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. So ADKAR, of all the change management methodologies, I feel like it is one of the more easier to use. I find that because it's an acronym, it stands for awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. I think that we've seen the companies where we've used it, we've seen a high adoption rate because of its ease of use. In looking at this rollout plan, we like to show this image to align it with the artifacts and activities and tactics that we need to plan and execute in order to increase our success. The first two, 100% focused on communication plan and the strategic roadmap. The goal there is to create awareness of why the change is happening. In this case, the change around OKRs is that an organization wants to get better at execution. They want to get the team aligned. They want to potentially improve accountability. And so in order to do that, you have to make people aware, and you actually have to get them thinking what's in it for them to adopt OKRs. And that's a lot of times we get that question, what's in it for me, the employee, if this OKR methodology, it feels like it's just a lot of work. The reality is it's a little bit of work, but it's the type of work that helps individuals perform at a higher level. It helps managers spend time, especially on their employees that aren't performing. A lot of times, a manager will not invest enough time in order to turn around a situation. And so OKRs will help that manager get focused, prioritize accordingly. A leader might say, wow, this is really complex. You're making I'm a leader of a large organization. Why are you asking me to do more work? Well, the reality is, in order to get your teams aligned, there are very few methodologies that I've seen that helps get the team aligned as efficiently by following the OKR methodology. So I think that's an important aspect to capture in the communication plan, because that's what we're saying. And then the strategic roadmap talks about how we are going to go about rolling this out. And so from that perspective, people need to understand dates. They need to understand who's part of that rollout plan. And that's what the strategic roadmap's for. So we transition from awareness and desire to knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. Now, the knowledge and ability piece is addressed with training and coaching. The area where people really struggle and get frustrated is resistance management. Resistance management is, especially the larger an organization, a lot of people on this call will appreciate and understand that in 100 employees, out of every 100 employees in your organization, you have 20 which are your high performers. You have 60 that are still trying to figure out, do they want to be a high performer? And you have 20 which have ruled out being a high performer, and they might have potentially quit on the company without even knowing it. And so 20, 60, 20. And so when we look at that group, we've got to manage the resistance, not on the lowest 20, because they've actually already quit. This process helps to see who's quit without telling anyone. And hopefully this might get them motivated, or it might get them up, or it might get them out. What we want to actually help are those 60 people that haven't decided yet to be a high performer. We want to help them. We want to help them manage their resistance, and we want to get them going towards high performance. And that takes time and energy, patience and persistence, and it needs to be part of any change management plan. Does that make sense, Brendan?
Yeah, absolutely. When we're talking about the implementation of OKRs, and we're coupling that with the resistance, management aspect, one thing that we haven't, spoken to is the human element of execution. So we've been talking about a fast start to be able to, create your objectives and have metric-driven. The human element of OKRs is what John Doerr calls CFRs: conversations, feedback, and recognition. And this is one of the most important ways of getting that buy-in and showing the benefit for the end users and employees, because ultimately everybody in the organization, they want to understand how their work drives the strategic initiatives for the organization. They want to know what their impact is. And they also want to have more training, mentoring, and regular feedback from their managers. So that's where OKR takes the metric driven, the being able to measure progress, to having quantifiable outcomes, and combining that with qualitative feedback that is going to engage and provide the transparency and accountability that's going to help in a more bottom-up way of helping people in the organization understand why they're really helping drive the organization and how their efforts matter and how they are, a crucial part of their teams and departments to accomplish the objectives, the larger overall objectives of the organization.
So Brendan, I'll build on that. I think when we look at this, one of the things that we try to bring up is training managers on those conversations, on getting better and better at giving feedback. We also try to work with the organization to try to start instilling a culture of feedback and rewards. A lot of organizations work really, really hard, but they actually don't spend much time celebrating their victories. And so this goes hand in hand with implementing OKRs. OKRs can't be just about shining a light on its employees so we can like talk down to them and be like, you missed your key results, you're not doing good. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about shining a light on an employee and saying, hey, you know what, you're not trending. How can I help you? How can I coach you? How can I get you more resources? And so that's a journey for a lot of organizations. So I think when we look at, it starts with training, and then that starts to lift a portion of the company. Now there are people going to be in there that are resisting. And so when we start seeing resistance, a key aspect, and the reason we have this visual organized the way we do, that's when coaching needs to jump in. So training is through groups, coaching is 1-to-1 or 1-to-2, and that's when a leader or a manager needs to bring in those people and coach them up just to help them to understand the benefit of how to use OKRs, how to participate in OKRs. And that's a key aspect that I want to make sure people understand, how to contextualize training, when and where. Resistance management. Resistance management is about listening, and then coaching is about using the right tactics that you listened in the resistance management piece in order to coach people up. Or maybe it's okay, sometimes you might have to coach some people out. When an organization gets serious about growth and it's going to demand a culture of excellence, one of the things that is part of that is coaching people out who maybe the organization's not a good fit for, and that's okay. And we want to make sure that it's not, if someone's unhappy, there will be some people that'll have to move on, and that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing for all sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And having better coaching, better feedback, more consistent conversations that are going to drive results will help identify the people who are truly contributing, and those that may be along for the ride. But so now that we are working on a phased rollout plan, there's going to be part of the awareness and communication that's going to happen prior to the phase 1 implementation. Let's talk about how we're going to, potentially roll this out, further out into organizations. We've asked the right questions. We've set the framework. We've set ourselves up for success by rationalizing our objectives, having participation from our teams, and having the key results come bottom up to those objectives. We have identified directly responsible individuals that are going to update on behalf of their teams. Ultimately, to get further rollout, we're going to be looking to drive the that accountability further down into the organization through the ownership of.
Well, let's not talk about accountability. Whoa. Let's slow down on accountability. First, let's just see a picture of what rolling this out means, because I think we have to be very careful using that word. And so for everyone on this call, OKRs are absolutely will lead to accountability, but OKRs are about visibility. And so we want to create visibility first for a small user group. And that user group is all about the DRIs that Brendan referenced. The directly responsible individuals generally at the top, along with some early adopters. So our first group, phase one, are leaders, the directly responsible individuals, and some early adopters. And then in phase two, we want to get more people involved. So on an order of magnitude, anywhere from 2 to 2.5 times the size of the first group. And then this next piece might surprise people. We still don't want to scale up the next phase. We don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. So we want to once again maybe go 3 times the previous size, 2 to 3 times. And then the phase 4, because we have a group of users that have been, by that time of phase 4, they've been on the methodology for 3 quarters. So they're very familiar. They're the experts. The next tier, everyone who is in phase 2 is actually also, they're not an they're somewhere between a subject matter expert and an advanced user. And so that's important. And then phase 3 will have also some advanced users, and we might even have a few experts out of phase 3. And collectively, those groups of people from phase 1, 2, and 3 make phase 4 a success. That's the thought process and what we've seen when we've done a large scale rollout. It really needs to follow this. I'm sure we've got people who've been on the call that have done large scale software rollouts. What I just shared with everyone is not novel. It's what's been tried in the software space, in enterprise software for quite some time. We're just applying it here to OKRs and the use of an OKR tool.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we see and what we recommend is to do this over a period of quarters, and looking at these phased rollouts to introduce that into the overall OKR lifecycle, so that over time you're able to pull in another group. All along, you've created visibility because you want to share the results throughout the organization over time, even though it may be limited to a smaller number of the overall organization. But then over time and through the life cycle, you will be creating further rollout by really driving the objectives and the key results further down into the organization, ultimately closer to the area of execution, and thereby more people from the bottom up, again, understand how their work impacts their team, their department, and the overall organization.
So before we move off this slide, I just want to give everybody a quick preface to start thinking about your questions, because we're nearing the end and we want to make sure that we answer those questions. Please put it in the chat box or email it into, Brendan, what was that email?
Yeah, so you can send those to hello@ateam, and we would be happy to respond to each and every question. And simply, if you'd like to take a look at the deck, we'd be happy to respond to that. Also, a recording of this webinar, this will be posted, or we can share that with you via email.
So Brendan, can we go back to the slide real quick?
Yes.
So one of the last things is that I just want to make sure that everyone understands this is just a sample, and we've seen variability across user bases. In some cases, people have been able to implement this. across 3 phases. So that's something that definitely we want to make sure that it's possible. So let's see. How long? So we have some questions. Do we want to start knocking those out, Brendan?
Absolutely. Let's take the remaining time. And the first question is, how long would 3 or 4 phases take to roll out, Alex?
So, each phase is a quarter, and, it'll be across 3 or 4 quarters. I think the life cycle slide, Brendan's going to share this slide. You really need to have a tight timetable, and we don't necessarily have this timetable here, but it talks about how you're working on the next quarter's OKRs 2 weeks before the end of the quarter. So you need to start doing some pre-planning. You need to do the quarter retrospective before you get into the next quarter. So I think that that's something that's very important. Let's go to the next question. There's 2 questions. Once we define OKR, what can be engagement model to advance using OKR to achieve results? So what should happen in one-to-one team meetings, leadership reviews, annual activities like budget planning and/or yearly performance? Wow, that's a robust one. So let's see if we can decompose this. So one-on-ones need to happen weekly or every week or every other week. We think it's very important that people stretch, that you have the right cadence between your one-on-ones and your team meetings. Now, we're seeing people who are committed to growth having a weekly one-on-one, weekly team meeting. We're seeing some organizations go to one weekly, a one-on-one in 1 week and a team meeting the next week. And so in 1 month, alternating weeks of team meetings versus one-on-ones. And then what's very important, leadership actually needs to do a monthly review of how OKRs are going. So when it comes to leadership, they need to be looking at it monthly in order to feed into the quarter. Okay, so we have one-on-ones happening weekly, bi-weekly. We have team meetings happening weekly, bi-weekly, and then they're woven in alternating weeks. And then we're seeing the leadership, meet monthly. And so the annual planning and annual reviews, Brendan, talk to me about what you recommend about OKRs and annual reviews, because I think it's important for everyone to hear that from you.
Absolutely. So, we break it down into the I conversations and the we conversations. Now, when we think of traditional performance evaluations, we consider that the I conversation. That's what is the individual's relationship to the organization. What are their, individual developmental goals, their compensation, their, other areas of where they can have impact, and that as opposed to the we conversations, that what are we trying to accomplish as an organization. So that's where OKRs come in, where we're setting these objectives and aligning everybody in the organization, more people in the organization, to the strategic imperatives of the organization. What are we trying to accomplish? So we separate those. Those are, part of a Venn diagram. Absolutely, if it's going to be the most important work that you do, it's certainly going to inform your overall performance evaluation. But many coaches and experts will caution against having a one-to-one relationship to the achievement of your OKRs and your performance evaluation. You want to leave some space in there so that you can stretch and have some freedom and like a lack of fear around not necessarily achieving those big, hairy, audacious objectives you might be setting. So,
okay, Brendan. You know what? Let's wrap up, just so we got a lot of questions in the queue.
Yep. Gotcha.
So the next question is, can we see a demo of the tool? Brendan's going to share an email so you can schedule that with Brendan and members of his team. The next question, how does an organization balance the need to fix process and procedures while trying to move the organization toward key objectives? So one of what we try to tell people, and once again, pardon the agile terminology, when you have process and procedures, you should create a backlog of what process and procedures that you want to fix. So if you want to make fixing process and procedures an objective for the quarter, then you make that's your objective, you assign it to someone, and then as a key result, you have to accomplish, clean out the 8, 10, 12 things in the backlog. Or there might be one specific process and or procedure that if it was improved, it would have a measurable impact to the organization. You would actually measure the impact as opposed to just the binary getting it done. So that's how we would tackle that. What format do you recommend the weekly check-in? So, and this is not just for the A-Team tool. There's a lot of tools that track OKRs and have a weekly check-in. So I'm going to give you a tool agnostic answer that is about the objective and the key result. Okay, so a lot of times in your weekly check-in, the agenda is dominated by things that are urgent and not important. Objectives and key results, in my mind, require your immediate attention, certainly 5 to 10 minutes a week. So you just, I'm not going to tell you how to run your entire check-in. What I'm going to advise you is to carve out 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning or at the end to allocate for checking in on objectives and key results. Brendan, would you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, being a software provider, we would be very happy to show you how a solution like A-Team can get together the one-on-ones between manager and the employee and make that an automated, regular process as part of your overall objective and key result framework. So we're partial to the automation part, but we can, again, line up on a demo for that afterwards.
Okay, but this was just a check-in question, so nothing else to add on the check-in. Let's go to the next question. It's generally recommended not to cascade objectives at small companies currently asking from a team of 5. So you should have a high-level objective, and then you should only cascade one level down. That's what I would recommend to an organization of 50 and below to start with, and then over time, hopefully, the organization of 5 is going to adopt OKRs and become an organization of 50 before you know it. Next question, how many key results are recommended? In phase 1, I would recommend that you start with 2. And you know what, if one's easier, start with 1. Generally, 1 or 2 per objective is the right place to start. As you become a more mature user, you can certainly expand to 2 or 3. I would highly recommend to avoid having more than 3 key results. But once again, I just think you have to be mindful that too many key results on a single objective tends to dilute it. Brendan, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, just coming up on, right now we're about 2 minutes left. I thought maybe each of us could take a minute. Like one of the last questions was, what are the most common mistakes made in adopting OKRs? And then let's do a quick wrap up. So over to you, most common mistakes.
Overcomplicating things. Being overly ambitious and overcomplicating really makes this very challenging and increases the complexity. And you have to be patient. You have to keep things simple. You have to stimulate a lot of conversation in order to get off to a fast start.
Fantastic. And, I'll add on to that, making sure that your key results do not become task lists. That is one of the things that people will in the organization will mistake key results for a listing of the activities that they need to accomplish. Those aren't, by definition, results. Those are the activities. So if you can focus in on measurable key results and how you will understand if you've made progress or accomplished your objective, then you will have a much cleaner path to a fast start. So I see we're coming down to about 50 seconds left on our on our overall webinar here. Alex, any final thoughts?
Well, there was one last question. We actually got to everyone but one, so let's try to answer this last question in 60 seconds. The question is, does it make sense in the phase 4 to break it down to the individual level of each team? And so what I recommend is make KRs available down to the individual level so everyone gets involved. Get everyone involved in the initiative. You don't need to give someone an objective down to the individual level, but I think it's highly recommended to get them involved at the KR level. So with that, Brendan, close it up for us.
Yeah, absolutely. We would really like to thank all of you for joining us today. If you have any questions, please you can shoot an email to hello@ateam, and we'd be happy to provide any resources or materials that we can. If you'd like a further consultation, please feel free to reach out to Alex or myself. I'd be happy to follow up with any of those demo requests as well. And once again, we'd like to thank all of you for joining us. Alex, I'd like to thank you for being so kind and willing to share your experience and knowledge with us. Any last words, Alex?
Well, this was one of an exciting webinar. We actually just started our intern program today, and I had the pleasure of presenting with a couple of our interns. So it was great to share that with them, especially because one is my daughter. So outside of that, it's been a good day, and I want to thank everyone for being here. And I wish you all good luck with OKRs.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.